Welcome everyone. This is topic number 6 on sustainable management tools. This course is for Executive Certificate in Healthcare Facility Management, Sustainability in Healthcare Facilities. What does topic 6 cover? Topic 6 will cover one of the strategic management tools called Project Integrating Sustainable Methods, well known to be called as PRISM. And this strategic management tools is what we will explain in detail respect towards how to manage projects and how to remain sustainable throughout the project life cycle, and also to ensure how is it embedding the sustainability impact into the operations and also into the objective of the product that is going to be known as sustainable product. Now, the compilation of these materials is being done through our various NGOs known as Sustainable Business Network Association Malaysia, Think Plus Consulting, and Edisi Hijau Sdn Bhd. Now, sustainable management tools definitely come from a well-known book called the Sustainable Project Management. These are the two books which we are going to probably share with the participants in terms of what it takes to carry out a sustainable project management in terms of handling products or processes within your organization. Now, what we're going to learn today in the sustainability management tools is to ensure there is an understanding what is the differentiator respect towards project management and sustainable project management. There is a difference in terms of its reporting and in terms of its usage for ISO standards. Also, there's a difference between what is green project and standard project. And there's an element of sustainability and project governance. And to a certain extent, how does this tourism methods can be used to integrate sustainability impact elements into their project operations. And to a certain extent, sustainability reporting can be done. There'll be a few exercises which probably can help develop participants to understand and how to design sustainability project using the P5 Sustainability Impact Framework called the P5, and also in terms of how they can develop a sustainability management plan within the organization and in incorporating sustainability impact assessment as part of the sustainability management tools, and also to a certain extent, how can the assessment report being produced to develop the sustainability reporting? All this can be done through our P5 assessment method. Now, what is PRISM? It is an industry recognition. For those who are probably not familiar with PRISM, it is already a method to be used by industry and has been used by industry as a structured project methodology that incorporates ISO standards. Number one is ISO standards for quality, energy management, environmental management, corporate social responsibility, and project management. It definitely handles one of the very important elements for assessment, for reporting to United Nations Global Compact, or for the GRIG4. And for those who are in project management, definitely it does cover the ICMA ICB 3.0 competence baseline. Now, the terms and conditions respect towards sustainability has got certain terms and terminology for those who are very familiar with. We did mention earlier in our topic 1, 2, and 3, 4 and 5 regarding economic sustainability. And this is where, in terms of the environmental sustainability, the component of it will definitely be measured in this topic. For those who have probably heard about the triple bottom line, which is respect towards social, environment, and economy, you also probably have known about the ESG, which is the environmental, the social, and the governance. Everything that we talk about sustainability covers the component of the triple bottom line and also the ESG. Now, what does the P5 standards methodology comprises of? It is used mostly for people to apply for project selection, for assessing risks, and also for sustainability governance. Now, how this P5 works together with the United Nations Global Compact and to the reporting system. So these are the components which we integrate as an element of integration of P5, product, process, people, planet, prosperity, in understanding the operation of the business model within the company or the organization that is involved in creating the product or the processes. And again, it is based on the book called the P5 Standard for Sustainability in Project Management. A copy of this book will be given to participants who are involved in this course. Now, as an overview, we mentioned about the P5. It has 5 measurable elements towards sustainability. Each of these elements are individually measured through a mutual procession. And the element that we're talking about, the P5 element, the first P is planet, the second P is people, the third P is profit, or we call prosperity for financial aspect, and the fourth P is process, the governance aspect, and also the last P is product, which is the technical aspect. Now, let's look at the framework itself. Now, this is already one of the award-winning framework under the PRISM method that encompasses the P5 element breakdown in terms of its title, product and process, people, planet, and prosperity, with its subcategory. For example, under the people, there are 4 categories, which is the labor practice and business work, societies and customers, human rights, and ethical behavior. Under the category of planet, there are 4 elements, which is transport, energy, land, air, and water, plus consumption. And the element of prosperity, which is on the respect towards profitability, there's 3 categories, which is business case analysis, business agility, and economic simulation. Under each of these categories, there are elements. For example, under the labor practice and the business work, there are components of elements that can be break down as components of labor practices, which is number 1, employment and staffing, labor management and relations, project health and safety, training and education, learning, organizational, diversity and equal opportunity, and local competence development. Plus, you can look at all the other elements that is under for each category. If you want to do a project and if you want to handle the P5 component for each project, you can choose any of these variables and you can choose any of the sub-elements as part of your components for you to design a project. This is what we call project designing stage. So in this project designing stage, any project manager, before they want to implement a project, they will then accumulate the expectation from the customers and the stakeholders in terms of what they need to report and to what extent they will then align the reporting with the operation team that also is going to be held responsible to assess the impact of this sustainability element to be incorporated towards the end of the project. Now, how does we define the product? For everyone that is in project, there are various stages. Either you are in the early stage of the introduction or in the stage of the project planning, whether you are in the growth stage, whether you are in the maturity state, or you are in declining stage. So each project can have a product of its own or a process system of its own, or in terms of its governance, it has its own community that they want to manage. But to the extent, everybody who has a project, they will have their own product definition. Now, in terms of its process, we have what we call the standards of ISO 21500 as a mean to interrelate activities so that all the project management under that processes are embedded into the system so that all the elements of security and governance are put down way ahead before the operations take place. And how do we help to perform the analysis on the P5? This is one of the most effective way on how you use the scoring system to help decision making so that the alignment of the impact can be assessed and the risk profile can also be evaluated based on the decision making tools. For example, if you're looking for carbon emission and you have deliverables to be impacting the amount or quantity of carbon dioxide that need to be accumulated, there is a tools probably that you'll be assessing in terms of to what extent it gives you the scores that you need. For example, if you have dribble 1 to measure the carbon emission, and you have dribble 2 that measure the carbon emission also, and dribble 3, you will then see which one has got the most negative impact in terms of scores and the most highest impact when it comes to its productivity. So you can have an element of this scoring system to indicate the quality of your project management. So if you look at all the P5 analysis for every one of the components that you have selected earlier, you will then see a profile of your project. So based on the rating scores. So in terms of the accumulation of the project, you start to see elements where it has got the highest risk and elements that has got the most negative impact or the most highest score in terms of positive impact. So in terms of element of how do you do the rating, this is an exercise that probably will help define in a group in terms of what will be the most collective scores to be given for such variables that has been defined in the pre-planning stage. So this is some of the tools that we use in the decision-making tools for project management on sustainability based on the P5 standards. And it is an exercise that will help develop the pre-propositioning stage before the assignment being done for the operation team to look into it in detail, respect towards collecting data and accumulating the assessment. So you can have these tools for different type of projects. So depending on how you look at the quality of the impact that you want to measure in terms of its energy, in terms of its transport, in terms of its waste, and in terms of its ROI. So here are some of the mapping that we have done to give you the indication of the before and after when you have taken action on the risk profile, and to a certain extent the reporting that you have received has shown improvement with respect to the risk that you have are looking for to help manage your project. So in terms of aligning the P5 with the GRI G4 standards and principles, this is where we believe the P5 has got the alignment and is one of the best tools to be used with respect to reporting as required by the stakeholders in terms of the standards that need to be applied. So the alignment has already been adjusted, and these are some of the reasons why the strategic management tools to be used for project management on sustainability can be adopted using the P5 framework. So what can the P5 do other than the project governance? It can also be used for risk management and also to look at what type of project that you want to embark as a means relating to your budget that you have in hand and in terms of the priority of the projects that you need to take shape. So in terms of the global concern respect towards sustainability, a lot of times the internal management have to not only look at the sustainable development goals that they have been asked to do so, and to also to look at the elements of the contribution towards climate change. They also have to look at the conduct or the practices of the sustainability within the organization with respect towards the ethics, and more so now the responsibility towards the social impact. The social responsibility will become one of the components that drives the sustainability awareness and also the branding of the organization with respect towards its role in performing their duty. And there's always an element of the supply chain that is very important in terms of how do you look at procurement as part of your impetus to reduce costs on the non-sustainable products, and also to ensure the purchasing is done right in time without putting any more wastage towards its purchasing. So what does corporate social responsibility does in terms of developing sustainable development? It definitely helps bring the health and wellness of the society to a certain effect. It takes into account the expectation of the stakeholders and also its compliance within the law and consistency with the international norm. And towards extent, the organization is going to be a role player in the organization. So in terms of its benefit, a lot of people may not understood the social responsibility in terms of its competitive advantage, in terms of its reputation, in terms of its ability to attract and retain workers or members, in terms of its employee morale, commitment and productivity, in terms of the views of donors, sponsors, and of course, investors from the financial community, in terms of its relationship with the companies, the government, the media, the suppliers, the peers, the customers, and of course, the community at large. So if an organization has its social responsibility impact being rated very highly, definitely the branding of the organization will come top high rank in the community assessment. So how does organizations drive sustainability? Because there's a lot of NGOs and non-profits and advocates are trying to promote sustainability in a different way. But how does organization, which has got lots of standards, also drive sustainability? Not because they have the ISO embedded into the system, but it's because the role and duty that has already been demanded by the United Nations to ensure that they are also in alignment with the variables that has been asked to be reported through the United Nations Global Compact Index or the GRI G4 principles. Now, the GRI categories, for those who are probably not aware, there are three elements or three categories that they would like to be reported. First is the economic criteria on the performance, the environmental criteria, respect towards the material, energy, water, biodiversity, emission, product and services, then the integral sustainability, and last but not least, the social, the element of labor practice, the decent work, to society at large, the human rights, product liability, and of course, ethics. Now, how does the GRI G4 help in the product reporting? And this is where, for those who have probably done the P5 framework assessment and incorporating P5 into their project, they will definitely able to report the customer health and safety, the product and services labeling, the market communications, the customer privacy, and of course, the compliance. What else does people need to report? Of course, under the Sustainable Development Goals, they need to select one of the 17 elements that probably is closely linked to the objective of their organization. Minimum 3, maximum 6 or 7 that probably integrated, well embedded under the roles of the organization. So how does the United Compact makes its way? So for those who have selected the key criteria of the SDGs, they can probably set their foundation very strongly if they have got the strong enabler within the organization in terms of performing what they need to do. So in terms of the green building, healthcare facilities, most important thing is the element of the environment. Well, if there is going to be some peace and stability in conducting the business, the infrastructure and the technology, the good governance and the human rights, where it is going to be the 3 components for the enabling environment, and the area that will support the resources available in the environment, be it for the energy and climate, the water and sanitation, and also for the food security. And of course, for element of the human needs and capabilities to a certain extent, education, women empowerment and gender equality, health issues are being addressed, plus last but not least, prosperity and equity for all. Now, where's the big disconnection? A lot of time, the CEOs or the top management, they are very much looking at to what extent they can report values. So values is not something that can be easily measured unless they understand what is to be incorporated in the values. This is what is very important in terms of what get measured, get managed. So if those values are what you need to measure, so it needs to be managed. So these are some of the 7 themes of sustainability that are very, very important that need to be incorporated in your project management. Now, in terms of the system thinking, everyone in the organization will have its own flow of how they design their organization. But what most organizations will do when they have a project to be empowered or project to be developed, they always pass it to the operations, bypassing the sustainability committee or the people that are involved in the designing of the project governance. So this is where a lot of the time people will always look at project as a 3P process, which is product, process, profit. But when you look at sustainability, it's not about 3P, it's about 5P, where you need to look at management of the project in terms of its time, cost, and scope, in terms of its risk and its benefit, and also in terms of its impact to society, environment, and the governance. So this is where the economic activity that an organization needs to have is just not trying to apply a 3P model, but they must need to comply to the 5P model. And this is where the P5 framework will come in handy for them to manage their project under the P5 model. So in terms of correlation between sustainable development and project management, it has a very strong linkage as according to the ISOs of asset management. So this is where a lot of people who are managing facilities, they need to understand the alignment between project management and sustainable development. So the ISO standards that is incorporated within the P5 are of this list, which is ISO 14000, ISO 26000, ISO 50000, and ISO 9000, ISO 21500, and ISO 55000. All these 6 ISOs are incorporated inside the P5 element when you design a project. So the PRISM method is the only method or the only methodology decision-making tools that aligns with all these ISOs and incorporating the United Nations 10 principles and the GRI 4 framework for sustainability reporting. So this is some of the elements that can help project managers to report as per the standards and also as using it as their management plan for their internal assessment. So business ethics, of course, is one of the most important things under the rule of sustainability in terms of its rules of conduct and doing the right thing, and how it is involved suppliers and employees in terms of its managing the process of sustainability. And in terms of business principles, it has to be horizontally and vertically having shared values. In terms of cost of ethical behavior, we know that it is not an easy exercise, but more so, I think a lot of the standards that have been adopted need to be incorporated within the means of the standard of ISOs. And so is corporate social responsibility. There is a need for how to address the impact to the society and how the power of the society can help improve the relationship between the shareholders, the employees, the suppliers, and also with the people at large, respect towards delivering the services. So more so, if the society are expecting a lot of responsibilities coming from the organization itself, there is always a check and balance regarding who are the contractors and the subcontractors, and those are the people who are involved in the project, and those who are going to be the suppliers, respect towards improving the quality of the system and the product that is to be delivered. So committing policies and values under the human rights are very important. So these are some of the part and parcel of the role of project manager to ensure there's a lot of transparencies in terms of its commitment to values and in terms of its first stance against any corruption. And in terms of its delivery change, one of the most important elements in terms of how do you incorporate sustainability impact is to ensure that there is a lot of commitment and accountability in terms of its ethics and decision-making, the integrated and transparency model, the principle and the value-based model, the social and economic equity, and economic prosperity. So part of the project governance in terms of how do you want to design a project management tools and also the strategic management tools is to ensure project governance is one of the subjects that need to be incorporated in the management structure, into the policies, into the limits of its authority and its stakeholders' responsibility, and also in terms of its addressing risks and also issues. So more so, if you are having a sustainability management plan and also sustainability framework, you can rate your organizations on 5 levels. Level 5 will be those who are having the most continuous improvement or highest impact on in terms of quantifiable or sustainability initiative. If you are lower than that, you will be in level 4, which is a category of essential. And if you are lower than that, you are just in level 3, which is foundational. If you are just lower than that, you will be in level 2, which is provisional. And if you are lower than that, you are in level 1, which is non-existent. And if you are lower than that, you are in level 0, which is non-existent. So this is some of the things which is an element of how you address your impact on sustainability and what are the decision management tools that help you focus. That's why project managers are very important to ensure that they have the right methods to incorporate projects aligned with their impact assessment. So these are some of the internal sustainability consideration in terms of when you address a project as considered as a business case. And to a certain extent, a lot of the ISOs are normally incorporated in the operation. But in sustainability, it is not in the operation, it's in the project governance. So the wrong element of assessing projects are always in the wrong place. So this is where we want to address the impact of sustainability is not only in the procurement. The impact of sustainability is in the designing stage. So if you miss the sustainability element in the designing stage, therefore the sustainability impact will not be incorporated in the project. It will only be a 3P project, not a P5 project. That's why it's very important for any designers of a project to incorporate the P5 right from the very beginning before the project is embarked, and to ensure the project governance is in place right from the beginning before the project is being put into implementation. And as is in the drafting stage, it should be already be defined clearly from the P5 what are the menus that need to be chosen as one of the criteria or any one of the criteria as selected in the P5. So these are what we have covered in today's topic 6, which is why we must understand sustainability. It is not a standalone subject. It is a subject that has got global views. It is a subject that needs reporting, be whatever standards that you want. It is a subject that incorporates ISOs, and it is a subject that is very challenging, especially for project managers. So thank you very much. We are ending our topic 6. Hope to see you in our discussion before the end of this class. Thank you.